If you've always wanted to learn to quilt but think blocks like this are too intimidating, then don't go anywhere because I'm going to teach you how to make this. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll remember that I encouraged beginners to learn how to make a half square triangle first because they're actually pretty simple, and from that half square triangle you can make some of the most difficult looking blocks. This block is just a variation of a half square triangle made into quarter square triangles, so let's get started. To make this Ohio star block, I used white as my background fabric and cut 4 4.5-inch squares and 2 5.5-inch squares. Then I took a patterned fabric for contrast and cut 2 5.5-inch squares and 1 4.5-inch square. Lay your fabrics right sides together and draw a line from corner to corner using a ruler. Then sew a 1/4 of an inch away from either side of that line, making sure to keep your corner points lined up as best as you can. Next, cut right on that line that you drew, and then you're going to open these up. These are your half square triangles. Then you're just going to match these up right sides together, but you're going to put your printed side against your background color. Now you're just going to repeat the same steps from before on the opposite corners. So draw a line from corner to corner, then sew a 1/4 of an inch away from that line on both sides of the line, and then you will come back through and cut that line that you just drew again. So now you have quarter square triangles where there are 4 triangles making up the 1 square. So I've said it before, I despise ironing. However, with some of these smaller pieces in these blocks, if you give it a good press, you will have better accuracy a lot of times. So for this particular one, I am going to give it a good press before I square my blocks to the finished size that I want, which is 4.5 by 4.5. Now we're just going to lay out our rows to make the Ohio star. So we're going to take one of our blank squares and then lay out one of our 1/4 square triangle units in this fashion, and then another blank square. And then we're going to continue on through rows 2 and 3, and we're just going to sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. With this block, you really want to make sure that between your rows, you are really nesting those seams like you see me doing here. That's going to help make everything line up really nicely. I'm just going to trim my block to the final size I want it to be, which is 12 by 12 inches. That is the Ohio star block. If you like this type of content, please be sure to give me a follow. I love helping beginners learn how to quilt, and I am designing my own sampler quilt this summer, and this block is featured in that pattern. Stick around so I can show you how to make more blocks that look more complex than they actually are.